Have you ever finished a painting and thought it's pretty good, but it looks flat? In this video, I'm going to share with you top 5 tips for fixing a flat painting. Let's describe what is flat. Something that doesn't have pizzazz. There's maybe a lack of visual pull, no depth, no hierarchy. Maybe it's just a painting that you feel is average and misses the mark. These no and yes examples show how you can really improve an artwork if you pay attention to creating more excitement in your painting. This could be in any media. The painting behind me on the easel is in oil. The painting behind me has a lot of potential, and I did plan on adding highlights. So I thought this would make a really great example of before and after to show everybody what I'm thinking about when I bring a painting to finish. Solution number 1 is to have enough variety in the painting. I want to double check, is the top cloud the same as the mid-size cloud? And what about my far trees? Are they arriving at the edge on the same line? If I have too much same, such as this water edge, it just creates a certain boring quality to the artwork, and I really have to pay attention to making some adjustments. Now, some sameness can have echoes of harmony and introduce an element of peace in the painting and tranquility. In these 3 examples, you can see water and vegetation, but each one contains a different mix of unity yet variety, and it impacts the way the viewer experiences the painting. So do pay attention to your ratios and decide what is going to work best for the image you want to portray. So we don't have to make everything filled with tons of pizzazz, but it does pay dividends to double check, is my painting having enough unity yet variety, and decide what ratio you would like to have. So this area of the painting has a good variety of shape, and there's slight variations within the rounded tree forms as they meet the sky. Next, I want to look for areas that have the same level of detail. If I have detail in the foreground, middle ground, and background, it's not going to serve the best interest of my painting. I want to have more detail in the front and less as it goes back into the distance. So here's areas of the painting that successfully work with variety of texture. I have a lot of texture in the front, and the clouds in the back are softer. So those 2 portions of the painting are working well, but not so much the green foliage. So I have to fix that. Next up for variety is to double check that I have foreground, middle ground, and background. These layers of the landscape are key for making everything work, and I have to make sure that that visual distinction is in place. Even though this is a fairly flat landscape and I want a peaceful feeling to everything, I want to avoid when areas of the landscape line up. The marsh is lining up with that shoreline in the back, and also some of the trees are lining up. Plus, I have to be very careful not to divide my painting in half, and you can see that red line here. It's a little bit too half and half. So that is something that I think can be adjusted by pulling the viewer's eye away with adding darks and adding lights and changing the shape of a few elements such as the tree line. This is tool number 2, really looking at your value structure to make sure everything is in place. I wanted to cover variety first because also we are looking for variety within the value structure. Value is seeing things in black and white. It's a problem if there's not enough light and dark contrast. The viewer's eye does not know what to do with all of that medium value tone information. So mid-tone paintings appear flat. The fix is to push the darks and enhance the lights. Also, you can group values, meaning nice clean shapes, such as having an overall light value for the sky and an overall light value for the water. In this digital repaint, I play around with a few different adjustments of adding dark and adding light, and I might take the painting in that direction. It's easier to do in digital form because I can try out a lot of ideas. Here I'm working in Procreate, but when I'm painting on a larger painting, it just takes more time. So I do like playing around with digital programs to just try some ideas on my painting before the brush adds another layer of paint. It's a really fun experiment to try these different ideas out. Check out this painting behind me. I'm pretty happy with how everything has been going on this painting, but I think it just needs a little extra something. Now that we know some of the tools to use, since we looked at it in digital form, let's play around with the painting and see what we can make happen. And maybe that seems very abrupt. All you can look at is that one spot, right? If I add additional spots, it could change the look of how you experience the painting, but notice what happened here, they're very equal. Let's just review quickly where we're at. On the left is my painting as it exists on the easel now, and on the right is just me playing around with some ideas on my tablet in Procreate, and that's what I just created for you in the previous segment. Now we're going to look at real-time painting and how I might move some adjusted areas on my canvas. This is dry, and so when I go over this layer of painting, I'm thinking about increasing the value. Value is quite simply looking at things in black and white, and to use a value chart, you can see that by putting this on my piece of artwork, this kind of melts right into this gray cube. So I have 10 cubes available. I want to have the sky in a light grouping, most of this be mid-tone, and then some darks and lights. I try to avoid this super dark in the background. And in fact, I have this medium area here, but I feel like as this dried, the lights got missing. So I just want to add those back. And actually that was part of the plan when I created the painting. This is a good strategy when you're making a large painting, just to work kind of in the gray or mid-tone area and know that you're going to add lights and possibly even punch in a few darks. Do add a dot of oil. It helps the second paint layer go on in a better way. I want the highlights to be only about 5% of the image. Let's do a modified tone for this. So I'm going to scrape this out. I think that sits better and starts to look like grassy bits. Okay, tip 3 is to play with color. If everything is equally saturated, there's no color hierarchy. Fix the ratio of neutral versus intense, warm versus cool, and let one color dominate. In the case of my painting, it's going to be variety of green. I'm going to try shifting this warmer. So I have the brush at a low angle and I'm just scooting this along that ridge line. So I've tried making this have a more orange look to it. The idea was to have the field really stand out, and I'm just bringing up that contrast to make that look a lot brighter. I don't want to increase the contrast too much. Now I'm going to use variety of edges on my painting. And that's a big tip, to make sure the edges are everything between hard and soft. Here I'm going to work on the tree next, and it's important to control the edges and balance the whole painting together. I really want to get rid of this mushroom shape of the tree, so I'm changing that shape. I'm going to mix a purple. Oil paint usually dries a little bit darker. So I'm repainting this in a slightly lighter tone. That's beginning to look a lot better. I think this got too bright. It's a bit too discordant. Wiping that out is a better solution, and it sits better in the painting. Plus this is in the center of the painting. So that's an awkward spot to have a strong visual pull. Next, I'm going to do a scumble toning glaze. I'm going to grab some oil. I want to have like a bluish purple mixture. I want to take this with a polish I want to take all of this atmospheric haze a bit lighter. I'm going to scuff this on and take a clean towel and then rub this out. So here I'm decreasing some contrast, making this lighter. This has a good feeling of haze to it now. Just wipe that out. So increasing your contrast could be taking away the importance of other objects. In other words, this looks lighter and more realistic with detail because this has been subdued somewhat and pushed back. Now we get to tip number 5, which is establishing your focal point or focal area. If the painting is going well, often the focal point is easy to establish, but if the painting is in trouble, the focal area can give you a lot of grief. So pick something and establish what the viewer should land on first. I think the eye is drawn more to this area because of the higher contrast, and usually it's important if the painting is divided in thirds to be focused on this area, here, or here. And so I've shifted the focus to over in this area for the focal point. Well, there's a look at the top 5 tips I have for changing your art and making it less flat. If you're enjoying this content, I have a lot of videos on my program. I have one on making greens that you might want to check out. Do like and subscribe, it helps my channel to grow. I hope seeing these tips has been really helpful. Experimenting with my painting, I'm sure there's a bit more work to do to take this towards the finish, but it's getting much closer now. And going into it with this second layer of color and thinking about my 5 points of shifting that flat middle ground, making more excitement on my artwork was really fun. Thanks everybody and happy painting.